Hello. Today we're going to answer the question, how expensive is functional fitness? And the corollary, how much equipment do you really have to buy in order to set up a functional fitness program? In this video, I'm going to review the purchases that I've made, all the equipment that I've bought, and I'll talk in detail about how much I spent. I'm going to talk about what I would do differently if I was starting my program today. You know, what could I have done better? And then we'll talk about some other considerations and observations that I've made along the way. My name is Chris Butterworth. This is the Healthy Butter Fitness channel. This is a place where we talk about being in your 50s and 60s and trying to fight off the effects of father time every day, every step of the way. I'm 56 years old and I feel great. When I turned 50, I had some issues. I had chronic back pain, I had shoulder issues, I had elbow issues, and functional fitness, kettlebells, clubs, and Mace is what helped me fix it. The challenge is building a program can be confusing. There's a lot of information. I had a really hard time taking all this information and putting it into a program that made sense. And the whole purpose of this channel is to help you do it easier than I did. I want to make your journey easier. So with that, let's get started. I'm going to review the purchases that I made. I am just enough of a nerd that I keep track of everything. So here's a spreadsheet. I don't know if you can read that, but this is a list of all the stuff that I bought. Now, I bought my first kettlebell a while back in 2010. I bought a 25-pound kettlebell. So I had a 25, a 15, and a 35-pound kettlebell when I started. But when I started this program, if I take the demarcation day of January 1st, 2022 as the date that I said, functional fitness full-time is going to be my exercise program. In 2022, I bought a 25-pound kettlebell. I replaced my old one with the brand that matched my 35 pounds, so that my 25 and my 30 pound were from the same brand. Those two kettlebells are my two favorite kettlebells, and they are the brand is called Ethos, and you buy it at Dick's Sporting Goods. A lot of kettlebell purists would make fun of me because I buy stuff at a sporting goods store or whatever instead of some official manufacturer online. But I love them. The geometry is great. They fit great. The 25 and 35 or 12 kilogram and 16 kilograms are $55 and $65. You can get them online at dickssportinggoods.com. So those are my two favorite. So I bought a 25 pound. I actually bought a 30 pound kettlebell. That was $65. After I had got going on my kettlebell program, I introduced club. I bought an 8X or an ADX club, the fat handle. It was $300. I then bought an adjustable kettlebell at Kettlebell Kings. That was $325. And then I bought a 1 1/4 pound weight for my ADX. So all in 2022, I spent $770, which seems like a lot. In 2023, I bought an ADX Mace, the full package. And then I bought a club handle from ADX. I didn't need the full package because I was going to share the weights. And then I ended up buying a Mace handle. So that those were $300 for the full Mace and $170 each for the two handles. And then I bought my wife a 7-pound Onnit Mace. That was $40. I'm counting it on my equipment, even though it was really for my wife. But in 2023, I spent $680. So I spent over $1,400, $1,450 in the first 2 years. The good news about doing this is that you own the equipment. So you don't have to pay any rent. The only rent you pay is doing the program. You pay, they say fitness is rented and the rent is due every day. And so I have to do my program, but I don't have to buy the equipment twice. In 2024, I ended up selling that adjustable kettlebell that I bought. I sold it on Facebook Marketplace for $250. I bought a custom mace. I had a blacksmith make me a custom mace. That was $150. And then I bought a couple of Onnit maces, a 10-pound for $50 and a 20-pound for $85. And then a couple of little pieces. So all in for 2024, if you count that sold kettlebell, I spent $90. So for the entire year, working out every day, buying a couple pieces of new equipment, I spent $90. Fantastic. In 2025 so far, I bought a pair of Onnit clubs, 10-pound clubs, so that I could do doubles, one club in each hand. Those were $80. I bought my wife a 20-pound kettlebell at Kettlebell Kings for $40. And I bought myself a 30-pound kettlebell. The kettlebell, the 30-pounder that I have, the geometry is just not perfect. It sits a little funny on my arm. Instead of sitting on the meaty part of my arm, it sits on the bone a little bit. So I don't love it. So I bought a replacement 30-pound kettlebell, and that was $80. So for 2025, I'm in for $200. So if we look at that over the course of 4 years that I've been doing this program, that's $1,760 in dollars, which is $440 per year. I've spent $500 on kettlebells, $600 on clubs, and $800 on maces, which if you look at the equipment, that feels about right. I seem to have more maces, and they're a little bit more expensive. So I mean, that's it. The good news is you buy the equipment once and you own it. The bad news is there is some upfront cost. So take that for what it's worth. There is a way to do it less expensive than I did it. So let's talk about that. If I could do it over again today, looking back over the last 4 years and where I am today, 4 years into my program of doing tons of kettlebell, I really only needed that 25 and 35 pound kettlebell. Everything else for me is just a little bit of extra. The 30 pound kettlebell, I use it just because I own it, but I could probably make a 35 work as a heavy offset to my 25. The 40 pound that I have is really too heavy for me to work out. I've done some cleans with it. I've done some clean and press with it. But the only thing I use it for today is suitcase carries. Because it's just, and sometimes I do some two-handed swings just during the day when I want to stand up from my desk and stretch my back out. I might do some two-handed swings. But that's just because I own it. If I didn't own it, a 35 pound will work just fine. So kettlebell, the difference between 25 and 35 is not that huge. And you can design your program based on how many reps and sets and the complexity of the exercises. I think I could have gotten all 4 years out of just those two kettlebells. For size comparison, I'm 5'9", I'm between 140 to 145. If you're bigger than me, stronger than me, maybe you go with a 35 and a 45. If you're not as athletic, I've always been athletic my whole life, but I've never been considered a real strong guy. So the 25 and 35 kind of work really well for me. So your mileage may vary. The club, as far as going forward, or what would I have done differently with clubs, I wouldn't have changed a thing. Having the two AdX adjustable clubs gave me the ability. I thought I was going to start out with 15 pounds because everybody online says that's what you start with. And it was way too heavy for me, especially my left hand. I ended up going all the way down to 7.5 pounds to start with my left hand. And then I was able to ratchet it back up. I've done two-handed programs and one-handed program. I've done heavy and I've done light, mixed in different days. When I first started doing doubles, I took both of my clubs back to 7.5 pounds just because it's really awkward to do one and not hit yourself in the face with the other one. So being able to move up and down and change and grow with it and everything, the adjustable clubs for me were perfect. So I wouldn't change that if I could go back in time. And if you're asking me for a recommendation, that's what I would say to you as well. From the Mace standpoint, I am not sure what I would do differently for Mace. I think Mace, the adjustable matters a lot because a 5-pound increment in Mace is much bigger than a 10-pound increment in kettlebell. Currently, I have kind of 4 different Mace programs going. I do my Mace Kata with a 13.25 pound Mace. I do my light 360s and my Mace Grind with a 15.5 pound Mace. and I do my heavy 360s with a 20-pound mace. So I have a light, heavy, and, a light, medium, and heavy in my rotation, and the grand total between them is less than 7 pounds. So when you have that giant weight on the end of a stick, the difference is significant. So I think that adjustable really matters for mace as well. If you had a 10-pound and a 15-pound mace, you could make that work, but it's light, heavy at a pretty good extreme. And then when you buy that 20, wow, is the 20 different. So I do like that I had adjustable maces. Over the course of time, over the course of 3 years that I was buying maces, I ended up buying some fixed weight maces. I did play with a little bit. When you watch online and people like do those flows and just spin the mace everywhere and throw it and stuff, I played with that a little bit. So my 10-pound mace, I took it out in the backyard knowing I was going to drop it, and I played with that a little bit. You could probably do that with the Addicts mace, but I'd be a little bit more afraid of damaging it. The thing's made of steel, you're not going to break it, but I did like doing that. But really, I'm not sure that I would do anything different. Maybe you explore one of the different manufacturers. Maybe Adex isn't the best for mace. I love mine, but there are a couple CK Mace Works, Kensui Fitness. There's a couple that I've seen online that use actual plates that you would use at the gym. So you could get 5-pound, 10-pound, 2.5 pounds, 1 pound even, bumper plates or whatever they're called, micro plates, micro load. So there are other options out there. I'm not sure what I would do differently on mace. I think mace is a lot of find your own way and do the weight that works. I think the adjustable really helped me. So that is what I did and what I would do differently. If this was helpful, go ahead and like and subscribe. That's going to help this channel grow, and it's going to help us build a community together. So I do appreciate that. The other thing I wanted to talk about is some of the other stuff, other observations, other considerations. What else can you think about as you're building this, as we talk about expenses in your functional fitness program? The first thing obviously is what is your budget? Can you afford adjustable stuff, adjustable equipment? Because it does cost more up front. If you are, barely getting by and you work it, paycheck to paycheck, as a lot of us are, a lot of people are, a fixed weight may be the way to start, and then you build your program around what you have. If it ends up being a little bit too light, you're just going to have to do more reps and you're going to have to learn more complex movements with it. If it ends up being a little bit too heavy, you're going to have to scale it down and do some really short sets. Maybe you do sets of 3 or sets of 5 and work your way up until you can control it. I think based on what I said before, the difference between mace, a 1 pound difference in mace is bigger than a 5 pound difference in kettlebell. So I would look to get an adjustable mace first. I would look to get adjustable clubs second, and I would look to get adjustable kettlebells third. And even though the adjustable kettlebell didn't work for me and I ended up selling it back, it might be perfect for you. So there's not a right or wrong there. The other thing that I would talk about, or I would think about as you're talking about, should I do this? How much is this going to cost? Is kind of the offset to what are you doing now, or the opportunity cost to what else you're going to do. If you're going to a gym and you're paying $45 a month, right? That's over $500 a year. That's what is that? $540 a year, if I did my math right. So you can buy a pretty fair amount of equipment with that same thing. Now, if you want to keep your gym membership and you're doing this, you're going to add some functional fitness on top of it. That's a different story. Now you have to account for both of those. If you're going to a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym, if you're going to a CrossFit gym, those are probably more expensive. You're probably over $100 a month, and that's a significant amount of money. So depending on where you are and what you can afford and what your offset is, keep all that in mind. The functional fitness equipment is going to come with an upfront cost, but the cost winds down over time. The other thing, I fixed my chronic back by doing this stuff. I fixed my rotator cuff by doing this stuff. I've talked about offsetting the expenses to your current gym or to alternative workout methods, but what about the offset to pain treatment? If you're going to a chiropractor every couple weeks to try to crack that back and make you feel better for a few days, if you're going to physical therapy, or you might have to go to physical therapy in the future, $65 twice a week during your physical therapy, that gets expensive really fast. What else? Maybe you're getting massages. Maybe you're doing dry needling and cupping. The more you're seeking treatment because you got these tweaks that you just can't fix, the better it is to spend a couple $100, buy some good equipment, and start doing this functional fitness program. You're going to be happy you did. Worst case scenario is that chronic pain gets worse and worse and worse, or that shoulder, just gets weaker and weaker, and a rotator cuff tear, instead of being a micro tear, becomes a tear that needs work, and you end up doing surgery. And that's thousands and thousands of dollars and a year of recovery. Let's get some clubs, let's get a kettlebell, and let's do prehab instead of rehab. I think those are other considerations to think of. So that was a lot of discussion around functional fitness expenses, what I bought, what I would do differently, and just some other thoughts that I've thought about. I hope this was helpful. I hope you're able to build a functional fitness program, buy a couple pieces of equipment, and get started. And I hope your road down this journey is easier than mine was to set up, and every bit as effective as mine was. I can't imagine. I'm just so happy that I made this journey. So hope you're able to share that with me. That's all I have for today. Have a great day. Go get better.